This is Dr. Jennifer Jansen from the Zepf Center. You're listening to JJ's Clinical Connection, connecting you to clinical topics. Welcome back to JJ's Clinical Connections podcast, a production from the Zepf Center. Today's episode is about something that impacts every part of our work, the sanctuary model of trauma-informed care. Trauma affects more people than we realize and can often show up as a variety of physical, mental, and emotional symptoms. It impacts how we communicate, how we respond to stress, and how safe we feel asking for help. That's why sanctuary isn't just something we do. It's how we create environments where people feel seen, supported, and empowered to heal. In this episode, we're joined by our Director of Training and Workforce Development, Tennille Darrow. Together, we'll break down what sanctuary really is, how we're actively practicing it across our organization, and what our upcoming recertification means for staff, for clients, and the community that we serve. Whether you're a staff member, a client, or a community partner, this conversation offers insight into how intentional care, shared values, and accountability can make a real difference. Let's dive in. Welcome, Tennille. Would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
I would. My name is Tennille Darrow, and I am the Director of Training and Workforce Development here at Zepf Center. I've been with the organization for about a year and a half.
Great. Well, for our listeners who may not be familiar with what the sanctuary model is, how does it serve as our trauma-informed framework?
So the sanctuary model is a blueprint for clinical and organizational change that creates a trauma-responsive community. There's two beliefs that are involved with the sanctuary model. One is recognizing that trauma and adversity are universal, and that it impacts everyone, clients, providers, organizations, and that many of the behaviors that lead clients to care are related to the experiences they've had. And as trauma, chronic stress, and adversity are universal, we can predict their impact on individuals, and we can be proactive. The second belief, which is probably my favorite, is shifting our perspective from asking somebody what's wrong with you to what has happened to you.
And tell us a little bit about why that's important. Why does that language change impact how we speak to one another?
So when we approach somebody with a question, what's wrong with you, it is really kind of giving that person the idea that they're defective or something is wrong with them. And when we ask what happened to you, it really kind of shows that there's something that has happened to this person that is causing these behaviors, and that we need to be aware of that and be approaching them with a trauma-informed lens. By approaching individuals with that question of what happened to you instead of what is wrong with you, we're recognizing that the behaviors, reactions, and coping strategies often develop in response to experiences, especially trauma.
Let's talk a little bit about why trauma-informed care is so important in behavioral health, especially for the communities we serve.
So it's important in behavioral health and really in our daily lives because it provides a framework that supports the people we serve and the staff who serve them. Often the people that we serve and people in the communities experience or come with complex trauma histories, and without a shared trauma-informed approach, systems can really unintentionally recreate stress or re-traumatization.
So it sounds like then our sanctuary model helps to shape our culture here at Zepf Center and the way we show up every day.
Yes, absolutely. So sanctuary shapes our culture specifically at Zepf Center with a shared framework for how we work together, interact with each other, and really it emphasizes safety, trust, and emotional intelligence. And that creates an environment where everyone feels supported, valued, and empowered.
Well, I know that our sanctuary training comes from an actual curriculum. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the core principles of the sanctuary model are and how do they guide our daily interactions?
So the sanctuary model consists of 4 pillars that form the foundation of the trauma-informed, trauma-responsive culture. Just like 4 wheels on a car need to all be working in order for the car to function, the same thing goes with our 4 pillars of the sanctuary model. All of the pillars must be working together to function well. And when we talk about the 4 pillars, we have trauma theory, we have 7 commitments, we have the self framework, and we have our sanctuary toolkit.
How does sanctuary show up in real practical ways, Tennille? For example, how does staff use it in team meetings? How do they use it to interact with clients or for decision making?
Yeah, so sanctuary shows up in real practical ways all the time. And if anybody was to step foot into Zepf Center, any of the locations, they would see it being practiced. So it shows up, for example, when staff pause and ask what happened instead of reacting to the behavior, or what's the matter with you, instead saying what happened. We can see sanctuary present in calm, predictable routines with clear expectations and consistent follow-through. In team and organizational practices, sanctuary shows up through shared language and tools like community meetings and safety plans, check-ins, non-punitive responses to mistakes. And it's present in how we communicate under stress, as well as how decisions are made and how power is shared.
Can you give us some examples of how staff use sanctuary tools or language to create safer, more supportive environments?
Yes, absolutely. So one of my favorite things about sanctuary model in the toolkit is the community meetings. When I first started here about 1.5 years ago, and I started at new hire orientation, we go through all of the 10 modules of the sanctuary model. And I was just really impressed with the community meeting and what that does for a team, for a community, for anybody. And so the community meeting is one of the foundational tools of the sanctuary model, and it's used by all staff at the agency as well as clients. And during a community meeting, there are 3 questions that are asked. How are you feeling? What are your goals? And who can help or support you if you need it? And so by asking those 3 questions in a team meeting, or even if it's a one-on-one meeting, we are really focusing on getting a feeling of how the team or the people who are participating in the meeting are feeling and get a pulse on how the room is. So, for example, if you've got 10 people in a meeting and you've got 5 of them who say they're feeling frustrated, that's your key as the team leader to kind of pause and really discuss that and work that out before you continue further, because you know that half of your team is frustrated. They probably aren't going to retain much in that meeting.
Sure.
With asking what is the goal, this really focuses on the future, and setting goals for the future helps us to look forward, not backwards. And then, of course, the last piece with asking for help, who you can ask for help. This normalizes asking for help, and it allows individuals to practice being vulnerable and safe and promotes trust.
I can see where it would help people make connections with coworkers as well, and or with other people at the agency.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Yes.
Well, let's talk a little bit about why it's important that staff feel safe and supported and empowered in order to give and provide the best care.
So the importance of staff and our clients and really anybody involved in the organization to feel safe is because when people feel safe, they feel supported and they're empowered. And they're more likely to ask questions, speak up about concerns, report mistakes, and make thoughtful decisions instead of operating from fear or from burnout. When they feel well supported, they've got room to be compassionate and patient and emotionally available. And it really goes with that common saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. So staff will be better equipped emotionally, cognitively, and professionally to provide that high quality care of support, safety, and empowerment when they feel safe.
That's so great. What are some of the things that we're currently doing to implement and strengthen the sanctuary model across our whole organization?
So since we've been certified in 2023 as a sanctuary agency, we've embraced this model here, and it's evident in the language that we hear, the way individuals are interacting with each other, and the care that we provide to our clients. We most recently, in the beginning of January, had our sanctuary retreat, where our sanctuary consultant, Derek Kester, came to the agency for 2 days. And he provided 3 different learning sessions to our staff where we learned, we connected, and these included topics like communication and conflict, supervision and coaching for our leadership team, and then also staff buy-in and burnout.
Wow, what a great opportunity. And, it's one thing to launch a project, to launch a new trauma-informed care model. It's another thing to keep it going. So how do training, reflection, and accountability play a role in keeping the sanctuary model alive and not just a checklist of things we do?
So training, reflection, and accountability are essential to keeping sanctuary alive because it's not a one-time training. It's a living culture that has to be practiced intentionally every single day. And so the training piece builds a shared foundation, and it ensures that everyone understands the 7 sanctuary commitments, common language, and trauma-informed principles. Reflection is really what turns knowledge into practice. Through supervision, team meetings, and self-reflection in the agency, we examine how our actions and responses align with the sanctuary values. Accountability sustains the culture over time, really. When individuals and leaders hold themselves and each other accountable to practicing sanctuary, that's when it signals that these values matter beyond the training sessions.
Absolutely. And I know we've got a lot of materials throughout our agency locations that encourage the use of the sanctuary model and some of those pillars you talked about. In fact, even in our studio here, we've got a board where we could conduct a self-assessment, should we want to do that, to really inspire the staff to have it on their radar really at all times, and that it's available for us whenever we need it. I'm curious, an agency this size, how do we facilitate training and implementation of the sanctuary model across buildings, across locations? Is there a centralized department or people that are spearheading this model?
So with the sanctuary model, one of the requirements actually is to have a core team. And we have a core team, and it ranges between 15 to 25 people because it is fluid, and we rotate people who are on the core team. And the core team meets once a month for an hour and a half, and we really just focus on keeping the model going in the agency and doing different things to encourage participation, engagement. And part of the core team also includes subcommittees. And so each person on the core team has to join a subcommittee that also meets once a month, and that is a virtual meeting. And we have subcommittees such as training subcommittee, we have the data subcommittee, the communications, and then we also have a fun subcommittee. So the core team is comprised of multiple different levels of staff. So we've got people who are in the executive leadership team, we have people who are directors, we have people who are managers, and then we have line staff as well. We actually right now have somebody from IT, we have a couple people who are in the recovery house working, and so we like to keep it very diverse because as most people know, the frontline staff are the ones that probably see the most and can bring us a lot of value to the team. But it's nice to have somebody in all different departments who are giving their perspective on what they're seeing as far as engagement in the sanctuary model being rolled out.
What does organizational commitment look like when it comes to the trauma-informed care?
So when we talk about organizational commitment, it shows up in how we think, make decisions, lead, and respond. And it's easy to say that we're trauma-informed, but the key is living it every day. And I think leadership sets the tone. So when you have a good leadership team who accepts the model and models it to the rest of the agency, that's very important. Our policies and procedures reflect trauma-informed values. Our workforce well-being here at the agency is prioritized and practiced through our safety plans, self-care plans, And then training is ongoing and meaningful.
Great. And I know my producer will remember that the inception of this podcast actually started from an internal project where we went around and we asked staff, how are you using the sanctuary model with your teams? And then how do you use it with clients? And additionally, how do you use it in your own lives? Because it's something that we want staff to practice. We want them to internalize the information and really the mindset for how to approach and communicate with other people. But I know that we have to get recertified. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does sanctuary recertification mean, and why is it such an important milestone?
So sanctuary recertification is really just as it sounds. It's the renewal of an organization's initial certification. So Zepf Center became a sanctuary certified agency in 2023. And so we had a 3-year certification, and we are coming up on our recertification. And what this means is we will have a sanctuary certification evaluator coming in June or July of this year to really evaluate how we've been practicing sanctuary. And not just, is it present in what we see, but is it actually being thought out, acted out, and lived by? So they'll come and they'll look at different things that they see, interactions with staff, with clients, maybe in the lobby of different locations. They'll ask for multiple pieces of evidence that it's being practiced and that it's embedded into our policies and procedures, our job descriptions. And once that happens, if we pass, there are 28 standards that will be evaluated. Then we get another certification. Typically, it is a 3-year. Sometimes, if there's areas of correction, it might be a 1 or 2 year. But I am confident it will be a 3-year.
I know. I'd like to say when we pass,
yes.
Right? So when this recertification process happens, how does this help us reflect on what we're doing well as where we can continue to grow?
So when we have our recertification, it will be a 2-day event where we will have that evaluator here. And the way that it can help us grow is we're going to get a lot of feedback. We're going to get a lot of feedback on what we're doing well and maybe some areas where we need to grow. And so that's really going to help us to identify those areas where maybe we're a little bit weaker in practicing.
Great. What message do you think that recertification sends to our clients, our staff, and the community about our values here at Zepf Center?
I think that it definitely sends a message that we are committed, accountable, and still doing the work. Just because we got the certification 3 years, we didn't stop. We have been going at it strong. And I think it also shows clients that their safety and healing matter and that it's a priority.
I know as your role here at Zepf that you're very committed to our sanctuary model, but I think you are very committed personally as well. How do you see sanctuary continuing to evolve within our organization?
So I can say since I've started here about 1.5 years ago, I know that we have really implemented a lot of things for sanctuary, specifically in my area with the training. We started about 6 months ago offering monthly lunch and learn trainings that focus on one area of sanctuary, and it's just a 1-hour micro training to really hone in on that area of sanctuary and give our employees those skills needed. And we base the topics off of what employees want. So at the end of each session, we have a survey and we ask our employees, what do you want more on with sanctuary? What are you confused about? What do you want to hear more about? And so that's really how we get those ideas.
That's great. What would you want staff to remember about their role in sustaining a trauma-informed culture?
Oh, I love this question. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier is really keeping in their minds what happened to you versus what is wrong with you, and also living by those 7 sanctuary commitments.
Tennille, tell me a little bit about what the 7 commitments actually are.
So the 7 commitments of the sanctuary model include democracy, open communication, growth and change, nonviolence, emotional intelligence, social learning, and social responsibility. And those are the 7 commitments that we all have on our employee badge so that we never forget them and we can refer to them if we're feeling that maybe we're slipping a little bit and we need to come back.
And finally, what would you want clients or community members to know about our commitment to the sanctuary model?
So we want our clients and the community to know that our commitment to sanctuary is first and foremost a commitment to them, their safety, and their healing.
Great. Well, Tennille, it's been a pleasure talking with you today. Thank you so much for coming into the studio.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Today's conversation reminds us that trauma-informed care isn't a box to check. It's a promise we make to one another. Through Sanctuary, Zepf Center is choosing to build spaces rooted in safety, trust, and shared responsibility. Our commitment to recertification reflects the work we're doing every day to grow, reflect, and stay accountable to our staff, our clients, and our community. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to download and share this episode. For the latest clinical connections, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found. For more information about Zepf Center's trauma-informed care model and other resources mentioned in this episode, check out our show notes. For more information on Zepf Center, visit us at zepfcenter.org or find us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Until next time, this is Dr. Jennifer Jansen signing off.